Three. And we are live. Welcome to the LD Town 8th Town Hall. And the topic is around talent vetting, soft skills training, presenting your best self. And now this is a topic that's very important, especially if you join this network and you're not getting a client. So I want to show you the other side of it, where the clients are coming into our platform and searching for developers and what they see and what they think. So that is a big deal. So the first thing that I wanted to share were around the tips for optimizing your profile. Now, the best way to do this is to maybe look at a concrete profile of somebody who has gotten a lot of matches and a lot of work from the platform. So maybe let's look at Pavel and Collins, and I'm sure they'll be okay with me sharing their profile. And let's look at what is it about their profile that makes them quite strong. So if we look at someone like Pavel, well, one thing that he sort of has going for him is that he has 11 years of experience. So that's something that's naturally going to be important, is to optimize your profile, not just for the number of years of experience, but the number of experiences. So if you look here, Pavel is not just listing skills, but also describing how he used skills in particular contexts to achieve particular features. You could see this across every experience he has throughout his work on LD and off the platform. And I think that's one insight that we sort of have, is that not just listing skills, but describing how you use them in particular contexts. Now, that is one thing. Another thing that we see in Collins's profile, I think Collins doesn't have as much experience. He has 4 years of experience, which many people coming out of undergrad, couple years out of undergrad, they might have done a few internships, a few passion projects during undergrad. And then after that, they have a couple years of experience. So you can get to 4 pretty easily. And many of the developers in our network have 4, but look at the way he describes how he uses skills in particular contexts to achieve particular features. Not just I used React, but how you used React, what you used, what features you achieved. Like for instance, he was integrating with video in React, and he does that consistently across every experience that he has. And no matter whether the experience is a work experience or a passion project or a school course project, no matter what it is, we're having a bigger audience join us now. No matter what it is, he's describing it in detail. So that's the first point. And that's actually one of the tips that's bolded here is this. So I am curious from anyone here, if we look at the profiles on LD, not all of them are as good as Collins or Pavel's. And so I'm looking for your ideas on how we can use our design to encourage developers to describe what they did in more detail.
I think most of everyone is muted.
Yeah. So sometimes it takes a little time for people to comment. Did anyone want to comment? Adiolio, you unmuted for a second. Okay, well, I sort of get it, that it's a lot of work to put in your experience. So one idea I had was just sometimes you have different experiences on your LinkedIn, on your PDF resumes, different places where you've described, and you're just tired of reiterating the same things across different platforms. It's a lot of work. So I get that. So maybe some sort of resume importing feature could be something that LD Talent looks into to spare you of some work. Import from your LinkedIn, import from your PDF resumes and such. But are there any other ways we could do things that are even more intelligent, maybe integrating from work sessions? So we analyze your work sessions to determine what type of work you have been doing, and automatically sort of just suggest things that you could add to your profile by just saying, looks like you've been working a lot with React on a car feature widget. Do you want to add that to your profile? Press this button to add it. Those are some ideas I had, but I'd like to take a pause for just 10 seconds and see if any of you have some ideas on how we can get more people to be descriptive like Pavel and Collins.
Just so you know, I'm not going away. I'm just stopping my video for a second. Yeah, I'm still here.
No problem, no problem. That's fine. We don't always get responses for everything, but we can move on to the next tip that I think that might be really important. And I think even if we don't get feedback today, you'll still get some good tips. If you're a developer and you're concerned about not getting matches, I'll tell you what the clients are sort of saying. When the clients look,
sure, yeah.
Yeah. So when the clients look at some of the profiles on our platform, they look at them and they tell me this on call, when I'm on a sales call with them, or when I'm talking to them in general about their feedback. They say that, I don't trust this developer will be able to complete my project because I just don't see that they had the experience that is similar enough to what I'm trying to build that they can actually achieve it. So your profile needs to convince someone to invite you. And then in the interview, you need to convince them that you'll be able to achieve what they want to do. And one sort of red flag is talking about to-do applications. So I know that a lot of people, for instance, if you go through Andela's bootcamp or you go through Lambda School's bootcamp, they'll have you build to-do applications. And that's great. But in the end, you don't want too many of those to-do applications, those Netflix clones, those types of clone type of applications to be populating your profile. You want applications that describe real significant experience across diverse technologies. And so one question is a chicken and egg. How do you get experience if you don't have experience? Because no one will hire you. So then that is the solution that LD came up with lifelong learning projects. So if you look at someone like Dafa, he has a good amount of experience. And I'm actually working with him on an LD Ventures project as well. But one of the things that I quite appreciated about him was that when he was not getting a client match, he was one of the people, and several hundred people have actually done this, but he went ahead and did a detailed GitHub blog project that involved lifelong learning, where he showed how he communicates through writing, how he codes in his project. And this can be a project, everyone in our network is probably learning something at any given point in time. So why not get paid to do that learning? If you just write up what you learned, you'll get $40 for doing such a GitHub blog project, as long as you post it on our GitHub and blog. So Dafa did that, and he got matches with LD. He got work on LD. And Mirishna did that, and she got work on LD as well. So if you want to get some work on LD, I would strongly recommend this. And so now my question is this. Presumably all of you are learning anyway. That's what developers do in their side time, some of their free time. What is the reason why more people don't take the opportunity to get paid for that learning? Because I mean, my argument is, one, you get paid for learning. Two, you just have to write it up and put it on our GitHub and blog. Maybe that's too much work. But three, it adds an experience to your profile that's not just a Netflix clone or a to-do app, so that the clients will actually see that you can build something for real, and then they'd be more interested in inviting you to an interview. So why don't we see more people doing this? Honest reasons. I'm waiting now. I'll wait for 15 seconds for this.
I would say it's probably because you have to come up with unique ideas, or unique projects for this blog post. I think for the most of it, you have to come up with unique project. So it's almost difficult coming up with this project or thinking about this project.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think, right? Yeah.
Okay, that's a great point. And one thing that I was, let me run this by you then, Ayman. Thank you for participating. So we have a lot of people participating now. I'm glad. I was concerned at the beginning that we didn't have too many people, but now we have Steve, Mohammed, Rahab, Rajab, Jehoshaphat, Anisha, Samba, Adeolua, Bashir, Ayman, thank you. So I think that one thing I was thinking was maybe we could have some paid other opportunities. For instance, coding challenges. Like if you go out and take a video of yourself screencasting your solution to a coding challenge, we could pay you a certain amount. That doesn't require you to come up with your own project. It just requires you to come up with a unique solution to a coding challenge. Another idea I had was maybe have people, this is part of some research that I do, have people explore professional websites and how they implemented certain architectures and design patterns and do a little report on that. A third thing that is a bit,
good idea.
You think so?
Yes, yes, I do.
And why so?
I'm sorry. Give me a second.
Say again.
Oh, why do you think it's good?
Because I think that could, yeah, I see what you're saying here. We need to put things on our resume, and I think that those are good things to put on our resume.
Yeah. And Ayman, what were you thinking?
Actually, I just joined the meeting and I did not hear exactly what you were talking about.
No problem. So all I was asking was, you said you need to come up with your own idea, right? That's the issue. So then what if we had some other opportunities of coding challenges or challenges where you try to learn about the architectures of different code bases and such?
Of course, I think it's a good idea to have such a coding challenges. I agree with you, and if I have the time, I will join these challenges. Of course, I will be honored to participate.
Sounds good. So we'll try to be more public about those, and that'll also let us get more data on the developers. So I'll share another tip with you, all that comes up, especially so you know, people don't have the energy to write up their experiences in detail. And I know some of you who get clients even that you don't keep your profiles up to date. And so then you're losing other clients who would be willing to pay you even more money, but I understand it's work. So maybe there's something we can do about inferring what you've been doing from your work sessions and auto-suggesting. Do you have any sort of like auto-suggesting ideas, any sort of ideas where we could analyze work sessions and automatically populate your experiences or import from your LinkedIn or PDF resume, things like that, ways to automatically improve the profile so clients are more impressed and will invite and hire you? Any ideas other than the ones I mentioned? Okay, cool. Next topic, sample code. Clients want to see the sample code that people have written, but the big challenge, it's kind of like the chicken and egg with experience, is the GitHub code and the sample code, you know, that is, and for designers, the equivalent is Dribble, Behance, Figma. Sometimes when you work for a client or another organization, basically they make you keep it proprietary. And if you keep it proprietary, then you can't share it on your public GitHub. So then the clients on LD can't see how you code. So how do we solve this problem? Maybe some of the projects you can share, but people are not putting enough code samples on their GitHub. For instance, we had a client from Y Combinator, which is a startup incubator that funds a lot of successful companies, come into our platform. He invited 3 developers, all 3 accepted, and he wanted to see visual examples of their work. And what happened was the developers, first of all, they answered a little bit late. So that's something, is just they answered after 24 hours. And usually when somebody's interested in hiring you, they want to hear a response. We understand time zone differences. So within 12 hours, but you know, 24 or 36 hours delay to answer a client is usually gonna make them lose interest. But anyway, so then he wasn't able to see sufficient visual examples of their work. For instance, their code, for instance, websites that they've developed and linking the code that they wrote to the portions of the websites or applications or other software projects that they've developed. So that's the problem. How do we fix this? I'll take suggestions for a few seconds. I'll wait for a few seconds for suggestions. How do we get people to add their code to their profile?
Maybe some screenshots, only some screenshots.
Okay.
So say.
So let's do this. Adeolua, go first, and then Ayman.
They're probably private. I said most of this code, they are private. So when you write codes for companies, they're in private repos. It wouldn't really make any sense to make the code public. So you really can't expose codes like that. The only code you can make or you can show to this client open source codes on probably GitHub, which they can go through. So I think developers probably have to work on more open source projects and then or more unique open source projects for these clients to go through. Yeah, so I think that's it. And then the only way they can show the client's private code is, you have to get permission from the company you built or you wrote the codes for. Because I feel you can just display private code in public like that.
Yeah, as you were talking, which is one of the problems that we mentioned, I was thinking, what if we could get people to basically, if they don't have code samples, ask their previous experiences if they can just share a portion of their code, for instance, a function or a class or such. And in the case of designers, maybe it's a little bit different, but in the case of developers, it's just share a gist, a GitHub gist with just some code so that the clients can see how you code. Maybe that's something you could even ask previous experiences for. Maybe we could make that more explicit as a suggestion. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Adeolua? Or anyone? Okay, I'll bring up another topic. So another way to actually get financial incentives is if you find a problem, and this happened to me when I was developing a lot, which was I would have a problem, I would not find the answer on Stack Overflow, and I would basically post the question on Stack Overflow, and then a few days later, I'd figure it out myself and put the answer on Stack Overflow. And one thing I was thinking was for LD to improve our SEO, maybe what we could do is instead of having people post on Stack Overflow, we could have them post the questions on our blog. And then if they figure out the answer, or if somebody else in the network figures out the answer, they can post the answers on our blog. So then essentially our blog improves its SEO, but developers also get paid for solving different coding struggles. I have added this to the documentation, but it seems no one's really aware of it or wants to do it. So do you know why? Also, is it just the $40 is too little? Is it just too much work for $40? Somebody said writing is tough, but is that the issue or is it something else? Obviously we can't pay people at their hourly rate to learn because they're learning, not working, but we want to know, are we in the right ballpark? And if you don't feel comfortable talking, you can also use the chat. Okay, let's move to the next topic. At least even when I don't get feedback. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. So Mohammed writes, yeah, I think 40 is a bit little. Okay, we can consider it. Also, we're paying the tester 15, but sometimes the ratio of work from the tester also does work. We'd have to evaluate that. I will think about that. I also want to just measure if I change it, what would happen. So let's see. Now, the next issue that I wanted to bring up is developers, once they are in the network and they are getting matches, how to optimize your ability during the interview process. So let me ask a question. It can be perhaps rhetorical, perhaps not, but I'll take this moment to just share a famous quote, because I always share these brainy quotes in our town hall webinars. So one quote that I'd like to share is from John F. Kennedy, which says, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." So in the similar way, ask not what LD can do for you, ask what you can do for LD. In a sense, I think that would be really good, is if developers can point out issues with our platform and technological solutions to it, then we may even hire those developers to fix our platform. For instance, we have already hired a number of developers internally to LD, but would love your feedback on, for instance, how maybe what we need to do. Here are some ideas I'm thinking. One, requiring the lifelong learning projects, requiring the coding challenges, paying for them, but requiring them so that people are learning. Another idea I had is every new developer that comes to LD, giving them a small internship project internally to LD so we can verify their ability and have them contribute to their problem. So maybe something like this: you join the network, you find a problem with the network that can be automated. For instance, our site right now, we don't have a referral link. So some developer could come in and say, "I'm new to the network, I just joined, and so I need to do my internship with LD before I work with clients. I noticed that your site doesn't have a referral link. I think that would be really useful." And if that idea is approved, then one, they can work on it so we can assess their coding abilities. Two, on the job. Two, they could build out that feature so it improves LD, so LD grows faster. That was another idea I had. I'd love your feedback for it. And also another thing I wanted to suggest at this time is that there is a reactions icon in Zoom. So if you hear any ideas that you like, I would like you to clap or thumbs up or something like that. So I get a signal, or party symbol. So I get a signal of how you like that idea. Or if you think something's funny, you can say the laugh symbol or so. So that would be good. So what do you think of this idea of sort of making it a little bit more legit, a little bit more required and formal in terms of the process, so that we can make sure that developers are doing the things that'll get them some clients? Okay, I have a question. Another question, and at least all these things are just going to be feedback points to people watching this of what to do and what not to do. Example of what not to do. This is something that happens all the time. Developers, they come in, or designers or whatnot, they come into our network, they accept an interview invite, and then the client gets introduced to them and they don't actually respond to the client chat. If you want the job, you're the one to talk first and respond to the client. The clients, you can't wait till the client talks to you. You're the one who needs to say hi to the client and convince them to hire you. So why do we see this where a developer accepts an interview invite, but then doesn't actually respond to the client and waits for the client? Any reasons why we see that, and how we can train developers to be more proactive and responsive?
It happened to me, and I think I did not notice the message.
And
Yes.
Mhm.
In the beginning, for the when I have received the invite, I got an email notification in my phone, so I
Mhm.
responded quickly.
Mhm.
But then, when the client did not, we did not. I think the client did not respond in the first day. The next day, I did not check the Slack, and I did not receive an email when he messaged me.
Oh, so he did message you.
Yes, after I accepted the invite. I think I have said hi, or maybe I did not remember exactly,
Mhm.
but he did not respond in the first day, and he responded 2 days later, and I did not notice.
So that's a big problem. This playing tag chat, it's a big problem because LD is a new network for some new clients and for new engineers coming in. So not everyone will have their Slack notifications configured properly. Slack sometimes has issues. Not everyone has it on their mobile and desktop apps. So obviously we're trying to push people to do it. Download the app, set your notifications, put it on phone and web, check it every day. We push people to do that, but people are not going to always follow every single thing. So do you have any proposed solution for how we can make sure that people don't miss each other? For ideas.
No, exactly. But for the messages, we should make them required. Where any message on the Slack, if the engineer or the developer did not respond in maybe 2 or 6 hours, we should send him a notification, an
Okay.
email notification. If he responded quickly, we do not need to send, of course, an email. But if he did not respond, we just we let him remember that he has a message.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Mohammed, for your comment about the internship opportunity to test the newbies in the chat. I appreciate that. Okay. Yeah, we are doing some notifications, but we'll try to optimize those further. I'll bring up another issue now. The interview is not necessarily a time to just get asked questions. You need to also, as a developer, in order to, some of the clients, they're going to be super technical. They're going to know what they're doing. They just want you to do that. And you can sense that. Just use your common sense and sense that. But sometimes the client is a little bit more non-technical. They don't have a full picture of their project. And you need to sort of act as not only a developer, but a good communicator, almost a project manager in addition to a developer. So you need to be asking them questions about, what do you want the application to do? What do you want the customer? You need to be asking customer facing questions. Who is your customer? Some design questions. What should the client or customer experience on your app be? And you should be not just thinking about what's my job, but also think about the customer, think about the client. What do they want? How they want to be successful, and how can you help the client be successful? So one of the things I was thinking about was actually something along the lines of a project success canvas, where you might be able to sort of walk a client through, and this is nascent, this is an idea that I had, but something, just walking the client through all the aspects of a new project, walking them through, even though the client is non-technical, you need to sort of, so one of the comments that we got from slightly non-technical clients is that they don't know how to manage a developer. And it seems that some of the developers in our network, and this is also a critique of developers from various different backgrounds, is that some developers, they just treat things like a coding project, whereas people want to hire more whole-brained type of individuals who are able to not just code, but also think about the business, think about the design and such. So maybe some sort of canvas where when you get a new client and you sense they're non-technical, you need to sort of walk them through, what is your project about? What is the type of data that you want to see? Ask the client this. What type of data do you want to see in your database? Let me walk you through this. You don't know what a database is? Let me explain that to you. What kind of logic do you want? What kind of templates are involved? What do you want your site to look like? You need to ask the client questions sometimes. How do you want the mobile to look like? What should the design experience be like? Who is your customer? What is their problem? You want to ask a little bit about the project as well. So the client feels like you're taking care of them. If the client feels like you're smart enough to take care of them and manage the full project, in addition to just being an individual contributor, especially for the non-technical clients, they will more likely hire you. Whereas if they see you as somebody who can only communicate about technicalities and can't think whole-brainedly about the full business, then it becomes an issue. So that was one of the things that came up. One of the
by the way, if you heard music, I apologize for that. I don't know how that happened. I just plugged my charger in, and then it just happened.
No worries. I didn't really hear much anyway. Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, okay. That's good. Anyway, I'm back.
Yeah. So basically, I was thinking about just one, suggesting to the clients what kind of questions they need to ask if they're slightly non-technical, helping them out, but also creating a module where we train developers to present themselves as people that clients can. For instance, recently a client said, I don't feel that I can just trust to hand over an entire project to this developer, these developers. How do we train our developers in the soft skills that they need to be able to go to a client and think holistically about their business and propose smart technical solutions and technical designs to them, be able to communicate with the client and do the coding? How do we do that? I don't think it's that hard of a skill to learn, but how do we do that? In LD, how do we train some developers to be more whole-brained? Hi, is that Jehoshaphat?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm very interested about this question because I've had about 2-3 occasions where the client don't really know what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And then after asking questions about what they really want, and then explaining to them the business side, the technical side, and the design consideration and all that, you get to hear things like, okay, now I have better insight about this project. I will go think about it and we can continue the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And months later, you'll still not hear back from the client. So how can we balance helping them understand their problem, and then when they go back and make a decision, either make them come back, or if they decide not to continue because they've gotten better insights, is there a way they also give us feedback so that we know that, okay, this person is not coming back?
Yeah, it's really tough. And let's be frank here. First of all, we only care if they have money. So many of the clients, I usually only admit the clients into our network if I know that they have money. For instance, they're from Silicon Valley, or they're from different locations where there are a lot of venture capital, New York, the United States in general. The clients are, they are well-funded, so do you think that the people you talk to have the money? It's just that they sort of, even though they have the money and you answered their questions, not just as a coder, but thinking holistically about their business, even then they didn't hire. Why? Do you think it might be a bias? We know a lot of developers in our network all the clients are pretty much in the US, and most of the developers, not all, and we have exceptions even in this call, but most of the developers are in Asia and Africa. So do you think it's that the clients don't necessarily, in the US clients, the ones in Silicon Valley, don't necessarily want to work with developers in Africa and Asia? Or do you think it's another issue? Jehoshaphat, I was wondering.
I think it's another issue. It's
Okay.
either they realize that, oh, okay, I think what I had in my head is way different from the reality. So I need to go back to the drawing board. And then after either they couldn't figure out the whole thing at the end of the day, or they decide that maybe they needed more time to figure things out, but they now keep the developer hanging without telling the developer what's up.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And just like, let's put all this in context here. We've had hundreds, if not thousands, of matches happen on our platform. A lot of people have gotten work on this platform. It's a good platform. It's just we're always trying to improve it. So if anybody watching this feels like we're just speaking negatively, no, we're always just critical of ourselves so that we can improve ourselves. But anyway, back to your point, Jahosh. But yeah, one idea we had was, and we have this in our design to do, is to get more information about their client. What is your timeline? What is your budget? What are the features you want implemented? Sort of just like we interview the developers and ask them so many questions and train them, we sort of need to vet the clients also to make sure that they have a little bit more buyer intent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's something like timeline and budget I think is very important. For instance, a client wants a solution, right? Like I tell some of my clients, there are solutions that you can get an output for maybe a lesser time, but the end result may not be as optimized or may not be production ready as something that took more time. You get? So maybe a client who did not really understand what we go into the project may envision the project to take, let's say, 40 hours. And then after you listen to the client and you've broken down everything that will be involved, you now realize that, okay, this may take 60 hours. If the client envisioned 40 hours, but maybe because we are strictly thinking about 40 hours, I realized a practical example was the first and last client I worked with. The project was very good. At some point, the client told me that this is the budget I had, but I had to explain to the client that, say, this budget can work and this timeline can work, but you may not get the output you want because it's going to take more time. Seeing that you initially thought you wanted a VR project, when I saw the project and accepted the client said they wanted the VR project in either in Unreal or Unity. You get? Sitting down with the project with the clients, we realize that the client wanted something that is in a 3D, but in a form of a third-person shooter or a first-person shooter, not VR like a fully immersive virtual reality using a headset. We just wanted a 3D environment that can run on a desktop like a game. So we changed the whole scope and the timeline the clients had in mind. So I had to explain to the client that, see, this will take more time. And the client had to adjust their timeline to match. And then we got a successful work done at the end of the day. But sometimes there are other clients who have a specific timeline and they are not flexible about it, regardless of the explanation they get from you.
But that particular client did fund more and they did finish the project with you at your budget at time.
Yes.
So that's good.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
That's
they
good.
did and finished the project.
That's excellent. So, but that's a good story. So what I'm reading, I read a few things. So the main themes I heard were client, buyer intent, project completion. So client, buyer intent, and expectations, project completion. And it segues well with the next topic we need to talk about, which is clients, like good quality clients. So the first thing about client, buyer intent. We all know where the money is. I mean, we're quite aware as a network, LD Talent, we've done so many cultural webinars of where the wealth in the world is and all such things like that. If we look at most of our clients, they usually have 10 to 20K to spend. So if they say they don't have a budget, they're probably not telling the full story. People, entrepreneurs who graduate from, say, the GSB or HSB, or other business schools in the US, which is our mode customer, companies out of Y Combinator and Techstars, which are our mode customer, they definitely have money to spend. Most of them do, in the tens of thousands. It's your job as developers, especially many developers in Asia and Africa, to figure out how to get the client to trust you so that they do spend that money with you, and how to make sure that their project is completed successfully. So how do we actually go about doing this? Well, one of the things you mentioned was leveling the expectations. I think one of the things that's really important that I sort of read between the lines was that the reason why it worked out in your particular case was because the client trusted you. Building that trust is a layered phenomenon. So the way LD Talent has set it up is that first we give 5 free hours. So LD is paying the developer for the first 5 hours to build that trust, to convince the client in the US that the developer in Africa or Asia is good, because I know they're good, but the client doesn't know yet because, you know, they're in another country, they're not sure. So that's the first level of trust. The second level of trust, this is an issue that came up with one client recently. He's actually my friend, but he hired developers on our network, and one developer tracked a ton of work sessions. And this was actually like sort of mentioned. This was actually mentioned in one of the blog articles, is that you remember the work session tracking initially until you convince the client to trust you. So initially, you want to sort of establish in the interview, is this person legit? I mean, I'm doing my vetting when I do the sales call with them. So I try to make sure every client is legit. But at the same time, I need to, right? I also don't want to have, I don't want to ever reject a client who would pay. So a false positive is still a little bit better than a true negative, because we don't want to turn people away who have money to spend on our platform. So anyway, you want to establish that you want to work with them. You want to sort of make sure that initially you're only tracking a few work sessions and checking that they're approving. You don't want to be like one of the developers who tracked a ton of work sessions and then got really sad. He did excellent work, but the client had different expectations and said, oh, you worked on something I didn't tell you to work on. Now that's rare, but it does happen once, did happen once. And so I want to make really clear to developers that it's really my job in LD as one of the founders is to get you clients. Your job is to convince them, because I try to make sure I'm getting you people with budgets. Your job is to sort of take a few work sessions, make sure that they're approving them, gauge that they're approving the work sessions, sort of see what impresses them, try to see what impresses them, and then sort of make sure that they trust you as an individual. Share a little bit about your personality, share who you are, show your video. I know none of you are showing your video, which is okay. I mean, it's with me, it's fine. But when you talk to a client, you need to show your video, you need to show you're a real person, you need to make that human connection with them, because in the end of the day, even though you're a developer, you're also selling yourself. Everyone's always selling themselves. So you want to show yourself, you want to talk to them, you want to communicate with them about their business so they trust you, so they see you as more than a freelancer. Because remember, LD allows the client to eventually buy out. Our goal is not to be like Upwork and Townhall. Our goal is eventually to get you a full-time job at those startups. And those startups do have the money to hire you, especially given our rate arbitrage between the US and the majority world countries or developing countries. So if you do a good job during the free trial, they'll fund more hours. If you do a good job during the more hours funded, they may even pay the buyout and hire you directly. And we've had scores of people in the 20s or 40 people get bought out and hired directly by companies out of StartX, well-funded companies out of YC. And these companies have raised in the millions, right? They've raised $1 million, they've raised 2 million. So they're not going to be worried about paying your salary. They have enough money to pay your salary. The problem is they don't trust international talent enough. That's the problem. So how do we get developers to adopt the soft skills, right? They want to see a cultural connection. Yes, you're in a different country, but everywhere in the world, Asia and Africa follows American culture. So you probably know more about our culture than some of us know about our culture. So you know about America, you know about American culture, you know about their business. You just need to be a little bit more confident in being able to show the clients that, you know, that they can trust you, that you're kind of their colleague, friend, build a personal connection with them. That's the way you get them to spend more and fund more on the platform for you.
Gobi,
Yeah,
is
go
it
ahead.
possible for clients, like if you decide not to continue after maybe an interview or something, is it possible for them to reach out or either to you or to the developer and say their reason? For instance, if someone decides not to move on after an interview, right?
Mhm,
Maybe weeks or months later,
mhm.
and the person, maybe they hire someone else, or like I like having closure. Is it possible for the client to give you the closure and then you can give to the engineer, or they give the closure to the engineer directly? At
Yeah,
least
instead of them
that way,
ghosting you, instead of them ghosting you.
yeah, like I've had about, I've been ghosted like 2-3 times, and I just want to know what happened. Was it
Yeah, that
something like,
YC client who signed up, he ghosted 3 engineers just recently. You know, that's how people are. If they, especially these business types, these entrepreneurial business types who are well funded, they're pretty, some of them are like that. They just say, I don't have time. I don't have time to even tell people. I don't care. But they have money. So how do we, so I'm telling you some of the reasons, because I sort of just keep messaging them twice or so for every single one. What is your brutally honest feedback? What is the reason why you rejected the interviews? And the things that I hear, I'm telling you today. So even though they ghosted you, I'm sort of telling you the reasons. They say that they can't trust the developers. We need to convey trust. Some of the ideas are put more vetting scores, show videos of developers presenting themselves, show them live coding on hard coding challenges that are the equivalent of what you would have at
like,
Silicon Valley startups. But yeah.
for instance, if a client tells me that, or they tell you that they don't trust me yet, and that's why they don't want to proceed, I'll be willing to do 5-10 hours free, like, so that we can build the trust. Let them know that, okay, it's okay for you not to trust me because we've not worked together, but just try me and let the work be on me, let the money be on me.
Yeah, Jehoshaphat, LD will pay you. We pay for the first 5 hours. That's fine. We don't want you to work for free. But the point is, I get what you're saying. You would love for the clients to be a little bit more transparent about the reasons why they're rejecting you. And I have tried, and I have not been successful at getting them to communicate. But I have been successful at communicating with me. And I'm telling you what they're telling me. They come to our platform, they look at the developers, and they're like, oh, this looks like another Upwork. I'm going to hire somebody in Asia and Africa at, I know it's going to be a reasonable rate, but I don't know if they're any good. Can they think, we want somebody who can think whole-brainedly. Now, I know all of you could think whole-brainedly and think about the business, think about the design, not just the coding and such, but they don't have full trust. Now, I'm not saying everyone, because we have had a lot of success on our platform of people hiring, but they now don't necessarily view the developers. They look at our platform. One of the comments that we actually got was just look at the pictures on the platform. They all look different and they're not professional headshots and they're not standardized and such. It's almost like impressions. This person is from this country, not the US. This person's picture looks like this, not like this. And they lose the trust because of that, even though the developers are good coders. And so it's almost like, what I'm asking you, I don't know, what more can we do? Because there's so much money and there's so much demand for skilled talent. And people are willing to, if you were in the Silicon Valley right now, people would be willing to pay you $100 to $200 an hour to work on their coding projects, essentially. But because of the fact that you are not in the United States, you're not in California, because of that fact, they all of a sudden are not sure and wary. So I want to know your ideas on how we can assuage them and convince them that you are really good. You may not be in the US, but you're still really, really good. What more can I do? I've tried to present you guys in the best way possible. What more can I do to present? Maybe I was thinking present some scores on coding challenges, present some scores on present some videos about how you all think and approach coding problems.
maybe to compare our the coding challenges scores with the Silicon Valley developers, maybe.
That's a good idea. I think that's a good benchmark. One of the things
Okay.
that, yeah, go ahead.
That's what I want to say. Just we need to compare our results with the professionals, those who are getting $100 or $200 per hour.
Yeah. Okay. What else? Anything else?
Okay, that's all.
Okay. That sounds good. Another thing that people are concerned about is IP property. They bring this up. It's like, how do I know? Because in the US, if they hire somebody and then the person leaves with their IP, they can just sue them. But if somebody is in Asia or Africa and they leave with the IP and the code, there's no way to enforce that kind of thing across borders. So obviously people are still hiring internationally, but so we got a suggestion. Yeah, Bashir, I suggest approval from the client before paying. We do have, the clients do approve the work sessions. Okay, well, maybe we shouldn't get all overly tied up in this because a lot of clients are hiring international developers. And maybe the real thing we need to be focusing on is just, why are people thinking that our site is another Upwork? We are vetting the developers. So why do they think we look like another Upwork? What gives them that impression, even though we are vetting?
Maybe it's a good idea if you add some challenges to be accepted in LDT.
Yeah.
To pass some exams. So you say that we are having only some of the engineers that has passed these tests, and you can show the test difficulty, or I don't know.
I think that's a good idea. Okay. Again, I think another thing is soft skill training. So I want to like train the developers during the interview. Your job is you should watch the videos that I send the clients about, all of the developers should watch the videos that I send the clients about interviewing developers. It's actually on this blog here, somewhere here, how to interview developers. It's on it's definitely on our YouTube. So I'll show you what I mean. It's this video here. And I think I should actually require all the developers to watch this video, because in this video, I sort of go through what, and I don't need to share the audio right now, but I just need to show you what the client needs to do with your interview. And if they're not doing it, then you sort of need to guide them through this, because the client, at the end of the day, they're looking for a clear estimate. And so you need to show things like how interested you are in the project. You need to start picking out some questions and saying you're interested in their project, and you need to sort of ask them questions. What are you trying to work on? What are the features you're trying to build? And then from that, start giving them an itemized receipt or estimate of, it'll take this long to do this. It'll take this long to do this other thing. Sort of give them a clear timeline and ahead. If they're not giving you a timeline, you should give them these timelines, like how I go over in the video. That is one of the suggestions I had. I'm just trying to give you all suggestions on how to maybe convince the clients that you're more than just a developer, but you're a whole-brained individual who can understand the business and who can communicate well and deliver. The layout of the profile suggests that we look like another Upwork. Yeah, I think that if we look at this page, I think it looks well designed, but I think there could be some more scores data that shows that we're vetting more. I agree with you, Mohammed. And then on the profile, we could have some video samples of the personality of the developers. But I'm also trying to just get the developers to understand how our system works better so that they can basically leverage the system to work with clients more effectively. Let me go through, I'll stop sharing for a second. Let me go through another resource that I wanted to bring up. One of the other things I think could add value is just developers having looked at some of our cultural articles, particularly the ones on how remote distributed startups work. Because one of the things that clients don't know how to do yet, if they're starting a company, is how to remotely run a startup. And if they're hiring you remotely, they need to know that you sort of can help them with certain aspects. Now, I'm not saying you'll be able to help them with marketing and sales and everything, because you're a developer, you're going to help them with development. But one of the things that you could maybe suggest them is like ways of working with developers who are in different time zones. For instance, things like setting up DevOps, setting up peer reviews. You sort of, if you sort of be not just a developer, but sort of recommend to clients, maybe we could use these linters to keep our code clean. Maybe we could use this testing framework. This is a holistic way we can approach our engineering team. And this is how, sort of look at some of these suggestions that I gave, and I referenced all the best sources, but sort of tie that into their entire remote distributed team, help them think about how they're going to run their company a little bit. Just to be a little bit more whole-brained was the last suggestion I had. But I know it's that article, I'll just share it in the chat. But I understand that there's a lot of opportunities out there, and we want to do our best to present you in the best possible way. But we also need to convince the clients to also operate in a certain way as well. And it's somewhere coming in between. Okay, let me ask a question now. So right now, I think the priorities of our business to make sure everyone gets more work is, one, improving our marketing. So we need to market more and inform everyone in the world that we exist, and we have the budget to do so and the means to do so as well. Two, improving our design. I think the design improvements have been going, I mean, we probably need to do that faster because we've been talking about improving design for the last year, and we have done some improvements, but maybe we need to create a more, a faster way of improving our design across our website. Three, improving our vetting process and our data so that people see that our developers are competitive with Silicon Valley engineers, with Turing and Townhall and the likes. Four, I think maybe part of it is me being the bottleneck. Also, I think our organizational structure could be improved so that we can move faster. Delegating, maybe we need to hire a social marketing manager so that I don't spend too much time marketing myself because I need to run the rest of the business. My co-founder also needs to spend her time more on, she's our CTO, so she needs to spend it more on technology and less on training developers. Maybe there's certain things we can hire our developers for to automate some of, Steven went through these milestones, right? And our CTO was actually manually approving the milestones, and that's not sustainable or scalable. We need to have maybe there's a HCI paper about human-computer interaction research paper called Scalable Peer Review. And Coursera does this, but maybe we need to have a peer review. So I am not the bottleneck in reviewing blog projects. Maybe there should be peer review of the milestones, peer review of the blog projects. We need to restructure our organization so that our core, our founding team does not get in the way and is not a bottleneck. Like maybe we need to learn from that. So those are the four things that I was thinking about of ways we can move faster towards being competitive in the landscape. I was wondering if any of you had suggestions on this front. Any problems when you look at LD, you see any ways we could be more professional or more effective?
I can't think of anything at the moment, but if I think of something, I'll let you know. I definitely want to help you make LD Talent the best it can be.
So yeah, thank you. Okay, well, this, I'll just wait for 10 more seconds, and then there's the final part that I wanted to talk about. So I'm just going through our engineer FAQ right now. Obviously, it would be even cooler if we had this on our website instead of a doc, but it's one at a time. We will keep improving our business. One of the things that we want to sort of talk about is, how do I maximize my likelihood of performing well? I think the biggest thing is just making sure your profile shows that you're really legit and have a lot of experience. So document every experience that you have. And if you feel like you don't have enough experience, then do lifelong learning projects. We talked about that already. But logistically, when you're actually in the interview, maybe some of you may want to consider the technicality of the client. And if they're not technical, being a little bit more holistic and showing them that you can be a collaborator in terms of communicating, and especially on the responsiveness front. If you keep your Slack open, if you stay logged into Slack, then, and you're responsive on Slack on mobile and web, then when a client does contact you, then you won't miss that ship. Being proactive about setting a check-in time. Maybe some of the client concerns about, is this person going to take away my IP, would go away if you sort of connect with them a little bit more on a personal level, a little bit. It's still a professional relationship, but maybe things like sharing different favorite movies or books or things like that will reduce this need of clients to ask. I mean, you could sign their NDAs and their IP agreements, but once they sort of know you as a person, they'll start to trust you a little bit more. So don't be a robot. And I'm not saying any of you are, but I'm just saying that we really need to show that we are the kind of people who are interested in the success of the client's business, not just our work sessions getting approved. Yeah, that's the FAQ. Let's see the HR guidelines if there's anything useful. No one reads any of these documents because they're boring. So I'm thinking in the interview, I'll just ask you to read it before the interview now, most of the new people, so that they'll just take a look and make sure they know. Because I can't have people asking me, how do you track work sessions? Because that is informed in Slack like 5 different times and in all our documentation as well.
In my case, I have to track my work sessions because, as I may have mentioned, I'm on Social Security, and in the case of being an independent contractor, you can't work more than 80 hours a month unless you put your benefits at risk. And while I don't intend to rely on my benefits forever, if I can get this going, I don't want to give up my benefits just yet. So I have to be very careful how much work I do each month. So I have to track how many hours I work.
That's excellent. That's an excellent reason to, and that's a constraint in the US in your particular case. I think that like the way people get paid is by tracking work sessions in our system. I think that we really need to, maybe one theme that's sort of coming out, especially since we're a remote organization, is the over communication. Just making sure that people are aware at all times, responding to people on time. The way that people will be convinced that remote work is great is if they know that they can trust that they'll get a response from you, that you're not going to leave their project suddenly and things like that. That's the biggest. Okay, you all were asking, why are clients sometimes afraid of hiring? Well, why don't they trust us? Well, their biggest fear is that a developer comes in, they do something, and then they leave without fully documenting it, without fully being invested in the project and having an interest. Another fear is that the developer turns unresponsive and ghosts them. So just like it doesn't feel good for a client to come in and ghost you, it doesn't feel good for a client to have a developer ghost them. Now, I'm not saying any of you would, but I'm saying that actually, you know what? Actually, we as developers have to take the first front because they're paying. So we have to be more impressive. So we have to start by being really responsive to the clients. Sometimes clients have complained that developers don't respond in enough time. And I think that's improved a lot. But those are some things, just like really taking pride in your work and trying to do a good job is the thing that will get a name for our platform. I think another thing is that there's a lot of good developers in our platform, but maybe if there are any bad apples and they don't do as good of a job, then the entire platform loses its name, and some of the good developers are harmed because of that. So we're going to work really hard on making sure the vetting is really good. We are doing vetting already, but making sure the vetting is so good that essentially when LD gets a name for being just fantastic, a pleasure to work with. People want to find contractors and convert them into their full-time employees through our buyout program. So that is something. One question I had was, one of the big things that I try to do with this webinar is create a little bit of culture so that people feel a little bit more loyalty to LD, whether they're watching or whether they're participating in the webinar. Now, one of the things that is a big deal is that we have 370 developers in our network who have some level of experience in computer science or in design. But we don't see too much cross collaboration. I don't think people really attend the donuts. Some people do. Some people have, but most people don't attend the donut calls that match people in pairs. There are so many skill channels. You're new, so it's okay. But there's so many skill channels, but no one really, I mean, people collaborate to an extent, but we don't see a lot of collaboration. So maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe our founding team is doing something wrong. How do we promote cross collaboration where if you have an issue, you're asking a friend in LD to help you with this issue, to debug something together, to create that community? How do we promote more of that beyond what we're already doing?
Well, I don't have an idea, but I must say that this is a great idea because since there's a lot of things that I might be new to, if I get stuck, I don't want to spend hours and hours and hours searching for the answer because, as I said, I can only work 80 hours a month and I don't want to use up all my hours. So this might be a great way for me to, if I get stuck, actually find a solution quicker.
Yeah, and
yeah, so it's
encouraging people to collaborate is a pain because I was actually part of a research lab, and the professor always used to encourage us to collaborate, and I always felt like I just wanted to use my time more. I felt it was more efficient to just try to figure it out online, and not always is that the case. But maybe there are some things that we could do, even if people are collaborating for just being friends. If we could just encourage, maybe what I could do in the next webinar is just create breakout rooms for all of you to just get to know each other a little bit.
Yeah.
If people are friends, when people attend in-person work, they become friends with their teammates. But in an online setting, especially in LD, which is a developer network, not even a specific internal team, there's very little, it's very siloed. And so I want some of you to be friends with some of you.
Yeah.
And so maybe I should just stop this webinar since we've covered everything. We've covered all the things that we expect you all to do to get clients. And I know that it's not a perfect world there, but we're doing our best to get you some good clients. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to try to see if I can create breakout rooms, and I'll put you in pairs because there's 8 of us, and I want us to just spend 2 minutes talking to a new friend, one-on-one, and then we're going to, and nobody leave the call. This is required. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to create 4 breakout rooms, and we're going to talk to someone. All right. So we're all going to do that now. So let me stop there.